Welcome to Crash Reviews. My name is Crash, and this is my review for the first half of Mandalorian Season 2. Now, I've done spoiler-free discussions and reviews on my channel already, so this will actually be a spoiler discussion where I'm going to discuss some of my theories about what's going on within the show and where I think it's leading. Now, I have been a big fan of this season so far. I think that it has done really good story development. I think that the characters have been just that much better written than they were in this first season. So episode 1 is pretty simple. I enjoyed it. Watch my spoiler-free discussion for my general impressions without spoilers, obviously. It's spoilers-free. But I did enjoy the episode. I thought it was a little bit slow for an opening episode for the new season, especially after such a climactic end to season 1. But I did enjoy the character of the Marshal. It was an interesting introduction. Somebody who's a little more altruistic, given that most of the characters in the show so far have always wanted something in exchange for their services or their assistance or whatever have you. So he kind of stands in for Queel a little bit after his untimely passing in season 1. Still a little sore about that. But he kind of stands in for Queel a little bit in this episode in that he's altruistic. He's there for the town, not really for himself. I mean, he gives up the armor in exchange for help killing the Krayt Dragon, which, I was so happy to see that, the Krayt Dragon. I mean, I've seen it in video games, but not in, live action like this. So it was really, really cool because Krayt Dragon's been around within the books, the expanded universe and whatnot for a very long time. Now, the episode was a little odd in the whole talking to the Sand People thing, because I think that did kind of lessen the Sand People as an element in Star Wars. And I did cover that in my review of that individual episode. But I wanted to touch on it a little bit more because he sits there and interacts with the Sand People. He speaks their language fully. He knows and understands their culture. That means he has spent quite a bit of time with them. And I like I said previously, I think it kind of spoils the villainy of the Sand People. They're a barbaric, brutal set of characters that kill everybody they come across and whatever have you. And that was their theme previously. And now, no, they're just another people. And I understand trying to bring nuance to the universe of Star Wars. I get that. I do. But that could be done with a new group or something like that. So yeah. Anyway, I enjoyed the episode of the Marshal. I really liked the battle with the Krayt Dragon. I liked that they didn't just take the monster down with their cooperation. It took quite a bit of effort. And in the end, Mando had to do a gullet dive, which I as soon as the explosives went off, I was like, oh, he's going to have to go inside it. And he did. I think the big part of that episode, though, as far as spoilers and leading into other things later, was Boba Fett there at the end. For those that don't realize, that was the actor that played Jango Fett in the prequel series. And since Boba Fett is a clone, that was Boba Fett. Any of the clone troopers would have been much older looking at that point, as you see if you've watched Star Wars Rebels, where some of the surviving clone troopers, they're old, but they weren't meant to live regular length lives, and they look like old men in Star Wars Rebels. And while yes, Boba Fett looked weather worn there and everything, he definitely didn't look old. And so I nearly positive that's Boba Fett, which also probably lends to that having been Boba Fett at the end of the previous episode on Tatooine, when you see the pair of boots walk up to the dead assassin from episode 4 or 5, one of the two. But the episode where they were on Tatooine and he got betrayed by the wannabe bounty hunter and everything like that, at the very end of that episode, some boots walk up and a lot of people thought they were Boba Fett's boots. I wasn't positive, but I figured it was definitely going to come back later. Otherwise, why put it in? Now, I believe that was for sure Boba Fett, given his appearance at the end of episode 1. Kind of curious, given that he hasn't shown back up yet in further episodes, but so be it. Episode 2 doesn't really have a whole lot as far as spoilers and whatnot. Baby Yoda's being a little punk, eating the frog lady's eggs, and while I personally didn't find him eating the eggs funny, I found his act of defiance funny. He was being a little punk, and he knew it. He was defying Daddy Mando, and that was funny in and of itself. The actual act itself, not so much. Didn't appreciate it. I understood but I think that was kind of the point. It was a dark humor, and we're not supposed to find the act itself funny, in my opinion. And then, of course, he goes and eats the baby spider thing, which I'm guessing they have some kind of psychic link for them to have all woken up like that. That or they were just reacting to the presence of critters down there. But if that was the case, I would think they would have gone down there and eaten Frog Lady way before that. We do see a little bit of interplay with the New Republic fighter pilots, in that they let him go for trying to save the guy on the prison ship last season. So that was kind of a cool little nod to what happened and to his attempt to be human and not kill people if he doesn't need to. But see, episode 2 didn't have a whole lot in the way of things to spoil. It was a monster attack episode. I liked it. It was cool. More monsters in Star Wars. That's always fun. Monsters I've never seen before. It was another ice planet, but hey. Episode 3, though, is where things start to get really interesting with the introduction of Bo-Katan to live action. Katie Sackhoff did a great job, in my opinion, as did Sasha Banks. And I don't know the name of the actor that played the other Mando, but they all did a fantastic job. They had the superior, aloof Mandalorian warrior vibe down pat. Like, they were the biggest, baddest in the room, and they knew it. And that's something that is understandable given the history of the Mandalorians, especially that particular crew, Bo-Katan and her people. So to backtrack a little bit to Star Wars Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, the dark saber that you see in there eventually makes its way to Bo-Katan, the dark saber that Moff Gideon used to cut his way out of his TIE fighter. That weapon is traditionally held by the leader of Mandalore and the Mandalorians. And Bo-Katan was gifted that darksaber by Sabine Wren at the end of Star Wars Rebels. And that when Bo-Katan was supposed to lead the Mandalorians. So I'd be very curious to know the history behind how that turned upside down, how Moff Gideon took it. I know in the expanded universe, in the books, the Empire just strip mined Beskar out of the planet, and they took over by force and everything. So I imagine it's much the same, but I would still be curious to know the story. But that was significant. So that's who she's hunting. She's hunting Moff Gideon and the darksaber because she wants to get it back, because it's a symbol for her people, and it'll help her unite her people and possibly reclaim Mandalore, which I have a feeling is where that's going, especially since she says that they want to reclaim their homeworld. Now there is a mention in there. She calls Mando a child of the Watch. Now I'm assuming that is an evolution of the Death Watch group of Mandalorians, which were hardcore super warrior types. They wanted to overthrow the peaceful government of Mandalore. Mandalore had advanced beyond its warlike ways and come to become a peaceful planet for the most part, and they wanted to overthrow that and return to the old warrior ways. And they played a big part in Clone Wars, and some in Rebels when they interacted with the Mandalorians. But so I'm assuming that's just an evolution of the Death Watch, and that he was found by them and so on, since the Death Watch follow traditional Mandalorian ways. Um, and that's if I recall correctly, Mandalore never removed his helmet, and so that's why the Death Watch espouses that don't remove your helmet thing. Um, Apologies, my contacts are bothering me. So episode 3 had a lot in it. The dark saber, um, retaking Mandalore, him being a child of the Watch, a lot of interesting developments in episode 3. And then, of course, at the very end of the episode, Ahsoka Tano. Not that we see her, but the mention of her and Bo-Katan sending him to Ahsoka as a Jedi, which is interesting because Ahsoka technically never became a Jedi, but I mean, I suppose more or less by dint of experience, she would be at this point. Um, Ahsoka is Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader's apprentice. He had an apprentice during the Clone Wars, and it was in the Clone Wars cartoon show, which after the first season gets very, very good. If you're interested in it, I'd definitely give it a watch. Last I knew, it was still on Netflix. No, it'll be on Disney Plus now. That's silly. It'll be on Disney Plus. I would definitely give it a watch. Season 1's a little lesson of the day, but beyond season 1, it gets much, much better. Very steadily too. As time goes on, like all through season 2, it gets better and better, and then you go into season 3 and onwards, and it just becomes a really good show. Star Wars Rebels kind of fell into the same thing. Most of season 1 is very lesson of the day, and then it moves off of that into better territory and more nuanced and developed character stories. But a lot of what's going on this season ties into the cartoon shows, and those cartoon shows were made by Disney, but they are also fairly well received by a lot of Star Wars fans. So they're kind of playing into things that Star Wars fans love already, as well as giving new story out there. Because those that haven't watched Clone Wars or haven't watched Rebels, this is all new to them. So it doesn't make much difference. It plays to what fans want, like myself, and gives everybody else new Star Wars to watch. And in my opinion, Mandalorian is the best Star Wars we've had since the original trilogy. I did like Rogue One. I'm not a fan of the new trilogy for a number of reasons. I didn't mind Force Awakens. I know it was a shot-for-shot remake, but I didn't mind it. Thought it was a pretty solid venture back into Star Wars. And then I think things went very steadily downhill from there. So I am not a fan of the new trilogy, but I did enjoy Rogue One. I thought that was very well made, and I really am enjoying The Mandalorian. So this episode's going a little long, but it was going to be a review of the first half of the season. Very excited to see tomorrow's episode. Hopefully we'll get Ahsoka. So episode 4 actually has quite a bit in it to pick apart. I'm going to start at the very end in the science lab. The things floating in the tanks are clearly clones. They are trying to clone a Force user. I'm guessing that's the Emperor, and that this plays into the whole clone the Emperor thing from Rise of Skywalker. But I hope it's actually trying to clone Darth Vader myself. I think Darth Vader was a better symbol of the Empire and its power and authority, and Moff Gideon seems like the kind that would have very much, liked Darth Vader, or wanted to follow in his footsteps. With Baby Yoda, the blood transfusion from species to species sounds rather odd, but hey, they mentioned using his blood because it had the highest M count of any species they'd seen or any subject they'd seen. And M count, for those that recognize it, clearly refers to metachlorians. Metachlorians were referenced in The Phantom Menace, and never really again, because it upset a lot of Star Wars fans, because all of a sudden the Force was this measurable capability, and then why don't they just blood test everyone? And it was a bit of a mess. But it's Star Wars canon, and so they kind of reference it without getting too deep into it. He's got the highest M count they've ever seen, Baby Yoda, which is curious. If clones don't retain Force powers, then Baby Yoda is not a clone. He's a baby, like an actual baby of his species, which is an interesting concept, because I think myself and a lot of other fans have assumed he was a clone. But a blood transfusion cross species sounds odd. but hey, it's sci-fi, high tech. Why not? Um, so I think they're definitely trying to clone a Force user or create a Force user. The other thing at the end of that episode that made me giddy and I jumped up off the couch was the Dark Troopers. For those that may or may not have played the old Star Wars Jedi Knight games, Dark Forces, Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, those games way back where you play Kyle Katarn. Dark Troopers are from that. They are droids built for hunting Jedi. That's their purpose, is to hunt Jedi. I mean, they can kill all kinds of other stuff, but their purpose is to hunt down Jedi. They can't be mind influenced, things like that. Sure, they can be force pushed and tossed aside. They are very heavy. They're very heavily armed, very heavily armored. They're a nasty opponent. And the fact that Moff Gideon has what looks like several squads worth of operational Dark Troopers is really interesting, and also kind of plays into the whole Ahsoka thing. So I think we're definitely going to see Ahsoka, and I think we're definitely going to see Moff Gideon sick the Dark Troopers on them, which I mean, I think this is a big part of why I have loved this show so far. Does it pander to Star Wars fans? Yes, it absolutely does, and I don't see the problem with that. Giving Star Wars fans what they want, why is that a problem if you can do it well and do it with good story? I think this show has been fantastic. I think it has been a love letter to Star Wars. And so the rest of the episode, that's a lot of what there is to unpack for the episode. But there's a few other things. I mean, we see Baby Yoda advancing his force powers. I mean, he was able to grab just a little tin of cookies off of the desk. Previously, he has shown mostly brute force powers. So his force powers are clearly getting more refined, getting more accurate and better. I wonder when he's been practicing, or maybe just natural aptitude, since the only 3 examples of their species we've seen. One was in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Jedi Master Vandar. I want to say Vandar was his name. And then on the Jedi Council during the Clone Wars, we have Jedi Master Yaddle, and then of course Grandmaster Yoda. So those are the only 3 examples of their species we've seen. And Vandar, I believe, he was definitely a Jedi Master, and I believe he was considered a very senior, very powerful Jedi Master. So their species has a deep connection to the Force, or their species as a whole has a very high midichlorian count, which, yeah, midichlorians. But I'm going to go with the more mystical side and say they have a deep connection to the Force as a species. So I'm very curious to see where it goes with Baby Yoda and how far they go with his force powers. Now, I have been very, very happy with this half of the season. I'm very excited to see what we get going forward. I definitely think next episode we'll see Ahsoka, barring some more craziness happening. I want to see, personally, I really liking the character development they've done with Grief Karga and with Cara Dune. I think both characters have been fantastic. I would like to see the Marshal from episode 1 come back, and I'm pretty sure he will. He'll call in some favors because they'll have to fight Moff Gideon and try to retake the Darksaber or something along those lines. I'm sure the last couple episodes we'll get to see Bo-Katan and her Mandos. We'll get to see the Marshal. We'll get to see Cara Dune. We'll get to see Ahsoka. And that warms the cockles of my Star Wars fan heart. I am definitely looking forward to the second half of this season. I think we're going to see a lot. I personally hope this is the future of Star Wars, doing these shows. I love getting movies, big spectacles and everything like that. Don't get me wrong. I love getting movies, but I like personal stories. And this is a personal story about the Mandalorian, about Baby Yoda, and about the people that are part of their lives and part of this story. I mean, story, yes, but part of this adventure. And not all of them are there all the time, but they're in and out. And I love it. I know there's been a lot of rumors about like a Cara Dune spinoff or an Ahsoka and Bo-Katan spinoff. I'd be down for it. I mean, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have proven that they know and love Star Wars. And until they give me a reason not to, I'm going to have faith in what they produce. So that's my opinion of the first half of season 2 of The Mandalorian. That's been my review. If you agree with me, feel free to speak up in the comments. And if you don't agree with me, definitely feel free to speak up in the comments. Please keep it civil. Happy to discuss. Until next time, I've been Crash, and this was my review for The Mandalorian Season 2, the first half of Season 2. Have a good day, guys. Oh, and happy holidays, because filming this on Thanksgiving.